crowd pleaser, as we're seeing Zero Tenacity hovering the new Thor fairly consistently, but I doubt we will see that jumping on in. You talked yesterday about the just rise of Emma Frost, but both these teams going to be prioritizing the Magneto as their first ban, and Zero Tenacity going to be getting Smashnez that Human Torch immediately. But this leaves priorities on stuff like Loki, this leaves priorities on the Emma Frost to really mix this up, and we see Rad, they have learned from watching Zero Tenacity in the group stage. They'll take out the Wolverine, preventing any of that, we only saw it briefly, but that single Vanguard triple duelist composition that Zero Tenacity brought out early.
I mean, the problem with Zero Tenacity, if you're playing up against them, is just how flexible they are. They've managed to get the one-sided, a non-mirrored Human Torch, which has been such a prevalent side of it. Smashnez has been smashing on this character, to be brutally honest. They've also been able to take out the Loki. No strategist bans as of yet from Rad, and it seems to be the main focus, I suppose, going into the second phase of this Protect ban stage. But you've got a one-sided Wolverine on the other side, so Smashnez needs to be ducking and diving because he's going to have a mad Canadian flying at him, no doubt, a couple of times this game.
Looking at the Psylocke ban, if they're not going to have a Loki of their own, there's a chance that they could try and secure the Loki for themselves, but Psylocke is a great way to just try and very quickly take out those regeneration domain lamps, so it's a pretty good takeaway here from Zero Tenacity if they were planning on bringing out the God of Mischief. But no, they're going to protect the Emma Frost, more prioritized on making sure that they have some kind of front line. So now Rad, they're open to banning out the Loki, they're open to banning out the Adam Warlock, as that is something that Knudsen has been bringing out consistently, and they're open to banning out the Captain America, preventing Lugia from getting a little bit crazy on those backline dives.
Zero Tenacity having access to not only Loki, but Luna as well for both sides. So I guess the good thing about being able to have Loki yourself is you don't have to dedicate with the Luna. Granted, she's amazing with the likes of Human Torch, right? Because you could just go for the Idol Aura. But it's a case of if you run Cloak and Dagger, you're expecting the opponent to run Luna because it's available on both sides, then you could just steal the Fate of both worlds from the opponent, not necessarily copy it across from your teammate. The Hell's Heaven is going to be the first of potentially 5 maps played out in this upper bracket game. Still a few more to grind through, but like we've been saying, it's all best of 5s here on out until the grand finals, which is going to be a BO7. So there's not really a chance for a team to I'm trying to think of the better word, but to just come in and not be the better squad. Both these teams have to earn it here, and with there being top 2 finishes in their respective groups, you'd expect as much.
Zero Tenacity have that extra weight of coming first in their group. Rad have that extra weight of being the first team to take down Virtus Pro. This is the pressure cooker right now. Both these teams have all of the expectations in the world, as Melio, an extremely fast rollout, going to be trying to set up a culling turret to try and punish people on the approach due to the fact that they did get this one-sided Punisher. Zero Tenacity, though, they did get this Torch and then double res comp with the Adam Warlock and that Mantis. So it's pretty similar to what they have run in the past, but having to run it with the Hulk, but that does still give them an unbreakable guard. There's the pickup onto Knudsen, but a beautiful radioactive lockdown may have just saved Knudsen's life, and Zero Tenacity are able to regroup.
Melio, big pressure, like you said, with getting a Protect in there 5 times so far total. It's only Emma Frost that's been more of a dedication, but trust me, who actually goes down in this fight against Smashnez. Just the Inspire, increasing the amount of damage that he's able to throw down at the ground. Might not matter if he just runs right into the Punisher. Melio knows his role, his job, and when it comes to playing on this objective, switching over to the shotgun, it's just going to make his life a little bit easier. Zero Tenacity, very good at the attrition, being able to fight on the objective.
Pushing on in, we're seeing Melio trying to zone everyone off the point, at least for the moment, ziplining, just to make sure that they stay a little bit safer in case anyone from Zero Tenacity was on that flank. Rad Esports taking the initial control to make sure that they have the setup. They can now create the culling turret. They can now wrap around with Naga to pick anyone off who is on their own, and they're looking for that Emma, but are immediately spotted and have to back away.
I'm good to go.
Melio keeping the pressure on, looking for the backline. If they can find anyone out on their own right now, here comes the final judgment, trying to get onto the Emma to meld on through the eternal bond for that extra protection, and the barriers are completely shutting this down for Melio as the Supernova is going to try to go for the turnaround, but they have to use the flaming media to disengage. Melio is taken out. Oasis on the turnaround, which is going to remove at least the damage boost from Smashness, who will go down in the counter. This is Rad in control right now, pushing on up to the high ground, and we will see the zone away. Last stand into that Karmic Revival to try and make sure that they can keep Zero Tenacity off the point. Oasis will get revived though, but they are still incredibly outnumbered. Zero Tenacity forced off the point. There's the Monster Hulk from Luigi, trying to buy them some space. Raja is getting locked down, but the reinforcements are trickling in ever so slowly, and this banner is gonna get absolutely staggered, meaning that with 82% on the board, Rad may be locked in for the secure hit. Melio is looking, making sure that they can pick someone up early if they can with this shotgun. They saw the rotation into this high ground, so they're trying to wrap around behind the Eternal Bond for the setup onto the point. Overtime ticking down. Canuta, no Karmic Revival. All they have is that Psionic Seduction to try and create any kind of zoning potential. Indestructible Guard for that extra defense. Zero Tenacity trying to hold the point, but they just can't touch it. They are zoned away, and that is going to be round number 1 of map number 1, picked up by Rad. Getting ready for Frozen Airfield as our next setup. An update for the audience, we are having a little bit of an issue connecting to my co-caster, which is why you are only hearing me at the moment. They'll be joining us as soon as they are able. Ducky, already charged on that Psionic Seduction, so could set up for the initial engage, for the early setup, if they want to try and gain that early control of the point. And that is something that Zero Tenacity may be looking to do. If they're already zoned away, if they're already behind one map, then claiming that early cap could be a huge advantage for them to try and turn this series around. They're also going to be wanting to try and build up that Karmic Revival, and a great way to do that is to take the defensive position and try and ping people as they run their way in from spawn.
Petra, I'm back. Can you hear me?
I'm back! Yes, I can.
My internet couldn't quite cope with the strain that I put on this and how important this first game was, but seeing that Rad was able to take the first point, I'm immediately drawn to the attention of Melio, that's playing the newly buffed Moon Knight, actually. Just going for the Ankh spam play through the teleporter, and we saw a couple of these yesterday of just the dive in, take somebody from 100 to 0 very, very quickly. Granted, I think it was a different team than Rad that was going with these plays.
They decided against it though, like you said, they looked for a portal engage, didn't find anyone, so immediately it's back over to the Punisher. Start off saucy, we've been seeing someone with the Spider-Man yesterday, looking to swap over to a Venom. It's these rollout plays. If you're portaling, you can afford to be a little flexible. Psionic Seduction is still being held onto by Ducky, though a Smashness drops Supernova extremely early. They attempt to get the Psionic Seduction onto them, but Smashness just too mobile.
Everything's back in order for the time being, but Zero Tenacity not able to take this point first just yet. The majority of the progression made, but not quite on the board, as the contest is going to be a strong one from Rad, and a very big dedication with the Eternal Bond being used alongside Anaya Bagamoto, a last stand, and that final judgment to just top it off. Rad were taking 0 prisoners there, Tetra. They used 4 ultimates for that one fight, and Knutsen's going to bring everybody back.
Whoa! The full revive coming on in, but immediately Garuda's going to be taken down. They do not have Cocoon as they used it to set this up, but they're going to try and turn this. Rajaro dropping low. Oasis trying to keep the team topped up. No other ultimates are available. Zero Tenacity just tried to take this. It was essentially a 5 versus 6 right now. In comes Naga on the pickup, gets caught on the roof, but is able to drop Oasis down quite low, but not taking them off the high ground. Luigi is trying to get is trying to get into the backline for any kind of setup, but will be dropped down into bad form and absolutely wiped off the board here, and it's just more staggers. Rad have control. They're chasing them back for the containment, and this is looking like Rad's game.
It was a hell of a play from Knuten to bring everybody back with a Karmic Revival, but the matter of fact is that Rad were able to take the objective and Zero Tenacity weren't able to actually take it back, so it ends up just stalling more time for Rad, makes it a long fight, and when Rad used 4 ultimates, they managed to earn back 2, almost 3 from what they just used previous. So Zero Tenacity have to be really careful here with how they take these next couple of fights. 55% on the board for Rad already. Only a couple more fights lost, and the first map is going to go towards Rad.
Zero Tenacity, Supernova, like you say, just around the corner. They have Monster Hulk very soon. But if Rad get an early pickup, they're going to want to try and pull the trigger. They're dropped quite low here. Silent Seduction into that regeneration domain from Winnie to try and turn this round. And with Knuten already taken down on that Winter Soldier, they are starting to get staggered once again. Ducky will likely hold on to this ult unless they think they can find a pickup of everyone on Rad looking healthy. I don't know if they can make this. They're going to commit to this because Knuten has swapped to the Iron Man to reinforce in time. Lugia is going to get melted by the final judgment though as they chase on it, and Knuten just as soon as they arrive is forced to fly away.
Somebody has to go strange, surely. Somebody needs to, I think it was Smashnez that's going to try and attempt it, and there's enough bodies on the point for Zero Tenacity to keep things going for the time being. But you have got the Fate of both worlds used there, and then you've also got the Sound of Seduction. It's not going to catch all too much. You can portal in, but if Melio's holding that close with the shotgun, you're going to have a horrible time. It's him just absolutely churning through them. Close quarters battles for Rad is going to leave it all in blue. A nice 2-0, and Zero Tenacity losing out on getting the Wolverine and the Punisher. Yeah, Naga just takes a big swig of his drink. Easy, now on to the next one.
That was fast, making up for the time from that low 9 game where we went to overtime in almost every round. But that was Rad just taking control there, utilizing some fantastic force physics to actually zone out on that final portal. Melio completely untouched. You gave Melio the Punisher with an invisible woman and a cloak and dagger here. So they have damage boost when they need it, Guardian Barrier to keep them protected, and Naga is just making sure that everyone is isolated. We saw some fantastic revives from Knuten. They really tried everything to set this up, but it felt different. They just weren't able to get positioning as they were always getting pressured, and they were sometimes getting depositioned thanks to Naga.
Yeah, Rad felt very prepared in this one, and you've got to say that this is a team that have been very ahead of the curve, I suppose, with what the meta has been. Rematches are a problem for them when they went up against Virtus Pro. It felt that they weren't really sure what Virtus Pro was going to change.
Single time, and speaking of either Magneto or Emma, well, this looks familiar.
There's a little bit. Araco, the most common map that C10 have picked up. The only other option is Krakoa, and because we've just had domination, we can't go there. So Araco, 1 win, 2 losses. So it's not been the best in form, but they have taken the likes of some of the strongest teams in the regions over here. The first time that they played up against Berber Patapim, they lost it. And the second time that they played up against Berber Patapim, they lost it as well when that reverse sweep was potentially on the cards. But the draft looking the same, at least to begin with, for Rad. We've just gone for the Magneto. The Zero Tenacity changing things up to not allow the Emma Frost. So the Vanguard line is going to be a little different to begin with.
That Punisher also taken away, like you said, just trying to take that off of Melio, and we will see the Loki getting banned out without that Punisher to just try and mow through those regeneration domain lamps. They don't really want to deal with it, and it looks like the Punisher will not be mirrored at all, taken out on both sides. Zero Tenacity very much considering what their ban is going to be, in Rad looking to swap away from that Punisher. We're going to see the mirrored Loki bans, and the Punisher does sneak through. It will be Psylocke taken away by Rad.
Torch protected for Zero Tenacity. I mean, Smashnez,
that's big.
Really couldn't get all that much done, it felt like, on that map. Just the damage wasn't enough when you've got a Wolverine and a Punisher trying to hunt you down. The Wolverine might be banned out here and protected from Rad to give them an option, and I think especially on this map of Araco, the amount of places that you can grab somebody and just pull them into a deep dark corridor where they can't get any peel or support or just flat out help is pretty good. The Smashnez needs to be very careful with where he's flying in the sky and whether Lugia is going to continue on with that Hulk, because that fastball play, terrifying if you're in the sky. The non-mirrored Torch is seemingly going to be the play for Zero Tenacity, so one's going to be up on the ground, one's going to be lurking below.
I love what you said about this map having so many like tunnels and alleyways. The living computer used to be the living island of Araco, but since Ultron taking it over, turning it into the I have no mouth but I'm a scream-esque facility that they have managed to create here. But it just has so many tunnels and teleporters and hallways that flankers like the Psylocke, which is why we saw it banned out, and that Wolverine now coming over one-sided, get huge value because they can always find a way to wrap around and create any kind of setups. But those flyers, while this map is mostly indoors, the ceilings are quite high, and you can get some big turnarounds to just isolate counter flyers with Wolverine. But with everyone grouped up in these tight-knit corridors, that Human Torch gets insane value.
C10 not going to have access to the Psylocke either. Rad will, so it's only going to suit them a little bit more. Granted, I don't know who's going to be really going for it. Like Melio not having a Punisher might, but I imagine that he's probably just going to play over to some other hit scan. We can see that Knuten is still dedicating over to the Adam Warlock. An Invisible Woman's going to be paired up, and a Mantis, I think, for Oasis. So the usual showing up, but getting Ducky back onto that Emma Frost might be enough to shut this down, as Rad are going to be attacking first.
Smash there's up on the high ground, but looking on the flank just in case. There's an Amon getting focused down. Aquatic Blessing will allow them to be healed up as Rad have gone in for, well, a composition we saw a little bit earlier. They're leading on the Hulk with Wolverine for a little bit of extra setup here. Melio on the Wolverine this time instead of Naga, as Naga is their Namorna player. This does mean that they have auto-targeting with those Monstros, forcing Smashness to take some slightly safer positioning, but there is also that Captain America going to be pressuring in the backline, trying to get onto that Namor. It's not mattering so much as both these teams just sustaining through the fight. Finally, Melio is dropping low, but they still get to pick up onto Knuten early.
This time that we've seen Trust Me play over on the Hulk so far in Ignite. The only other Vanguard that this team hasn't played is unfortunately Thor. We'll see whether the buffs are going to make too much of a difference there, but it's hard to know. For Rad, however, really more of a brawl than anything. Rajara trying to contest the high ground to see if he can gain a bit more support and push back the Zero Tenacity team that are dealing with the pressure nicely. You've got the prison on the ground from the Human Torch to just keep the damage around the objective high enough to potentially allow Lugia some space to go in and harass. The problem, however, is he doesn't have anybody diving in with him necessarily, other than Smashness that's just up in the sky.
The jump scare coming in, trying to get the shield onto that Human Torch. Smashness will be able to disengage. Here comes that Soul Rejuvenation from Oasis to set up for the Supernova. Horde of Proteus takes out Oasis through their ult though, and that might open this up for Rad to keep the push on going with all that sustain taken out. They get Winnie as well. They just burst through both of the big strategist ultimates. They even take out Knuten, meaning there's going to be no revive as they did not have Cocoon. Trust me, will get slumbered as Oasis was able to return, but this is Rad with the momentum right now, pushing on through, finding isolated members, and they are heading towards that point number one in quick fashion. No one's even on the point, they're just brawling while the tree moves alone.
Oh, Knuten does have a Karmic Revival, and they're not even going to contest this. No, they're not. So it's pretty much for free for Rad. There was maybe a chance that if Zero Tenacity could throw some bodies on the board, a Karmic Revival might help them stem the flow a little bit more, but they can. That Rajaro pick over onto Oasis is just going to keep that gravy train going. Things are looking great for Rad on this attacking side, and we're seeing Zero Tenacity look completely uncomposed. They're just losing players one at a time. Absolute free fall for this team. They need to get some presence here, because if they can't stop this payload before it gets up this slope, it can be incredibly difficult to match that on their attacking side.
Smashness sieging from above. The Hulk trying to charge in and tackle them out the air. Wolverine flying past. Smashness, normally playing the just having to dodge hit scan characters, is in a physical body bullet hell right now to try and not get caught out of the air. Knuten has moved onto the Ultra. Nice force physics to prevent Melio from pushing on in until the bond comes on out, and Smashness was taken down. Those Monstros auto-targeting, able to track them as they try to dash away. Melio gets another pick up, and Rad are just continuing to move on forward one by one. Here comes Wolverine once again, finds Winnie, last stand, and at the edge, taking the Invisible Woman with them. Melio just not giving them any room to breathe.
It's not been contested. Oh, people just getting on the end there for Zero Tenacity. It has to be Lugia, who does have an Eye of Agamotto, but he needs the space in the window. Supernova going to be used. Knuten going over towards the Ultron. Still triple strategist, but a bit more damage and a little bit more agency over this game, because there's so much damage coming in through Rad as the World Breaker Hulk is CC to eternity. He doesn't even get to play the game. Trust me, just deleted from the server, at least for the next 10 seconds, means that Zero Tenacity finally get a grip on things, Tetra.
They can breathe, they can take a break, they track down Melio. Naga is gone as well. Rajra was taken out right at the beginning of the fight, so it's already respawning, and they're just going to regroup. Naga moving off of the Namor. It's actually been doing quite well for them, but seeing that Ultron in the air as well, they know that Ultron can just track the squid super easily and take them down, so it's easier to go for a duel. And the Star-Lord is someone who can duel flyers incredibly well. Invincibility frames, hyper-mobile, the ability to meet flyers where they are with his short distance worth of flying, can try and take 1v1s versus almost any other flyer in the game. Sometimes Torch can get an advantage with that shotgun-like blast. There's the pickup onto the Ultron, trying to get the final hit, but they just can't do it. Knudsen able to back away.
Trust me, picking up the thing. Rajaro's also played a little bit in the past. Mad Scientist Vanguard, as we spoke to him yesterday. Trust me, halfway to building up that clobbering time, and Naga having a bit more freedom to switch over, not relying on that team up with Hulk and Namor anymore. And this adjustment from Zero Tenacity has been an effective one. Smash this is another supernova. He is absolutely churning through them, but the rest of the team goes down. It doesn't matter if he's able to contest in the sky. If on the ground you've got Melio just charging through people. You've got the fate of both worlds to just keep Rad on this point, clobbering time if they need to clear anybody else up. But they just take out Smashnez. And the second point reaching towards the finale with just over 2 minutes left.
Rad had to play against Insomnia in the upper bracket finals of Group B. They looked at that and said, you know what? Yeah, good idea. And they have brought in the Wolverine being tossed by the Thorn and now by the Thing to try and shut them down. Lugia swapped over to the Thing as well to try and just lock down Melio. Stop them moving and to stop themselves getting picked off out of position. Here comes the moving from Knudsen onto the backline. Clobbering time comes on out, but it's going to be absorbed. Thanks to Ducky dropping that psionic seduction forward to set up an eternal bond from Fate is keeping everyone up in this fight. Knudsen getting chased down. Meteor M to try and find anyone up high, but they're not able to find the finishing blow.
That was a hard target to hit, and he completely missed it. Just a little bit of damage, but when you've got a Fate of both worlds going on from Oasis, you're going to be pretty comfortable. We've got mirrored things now on the map. It's been a while since we've seen this. And you're just seeing the bodies from not only Zero Tenacity, but Rad rushing back into the fight. Rajaro looking to go Captain America, decides to opt against it and go back to the Magneto. They still have a good amount of time. They still want to play around some of these elements. And Melio switching away from the Wolverine is now going to be on Psylocke and has a Dance of the Butterflies pretty much ready to go. Is there any defensive strategist ults ready to go for Zero Tenacity? You've got the Rage of Ultron to be in use, but that's about it, Tetcher.
And they won't get to use it if they're picked off. Knudsen dropped quite low. Smashness with that supernova is the only one who survived that as Melio cleans on up the Galactic Legend to force everyone to group up in cover together, and then Melio takes the advantage. They didn't even use Straggling Prison for that, which means now in this incredibly difficult to push final point where the spawn door is right next to the objective, Straggling Prison into every bit of damage they have left, and the Eternal Bond's about to come in. They have already set themselves up to push on in, and Zero Tenacity are already running out of bodies. The card is creeping forward, but they do have bodies. They swap into the Venom to try and buy time. Knudsen has already been taken down once on this Adam Warlock to try and get them the revive. Soul Rejuvenation, Blast of Mirage to try and burst through these defenses as Zero Tenacity are not living up to their name at all. They are tenacious. They refuse to give an inch at these final few meters.
It's really a case of that strategy from Zero Tenacity working out, but the fight's not over yet. Supernova's going to be dedicated, trying to go for the Star-Lord, who's able to sneak out. Smashnez now catching over onto Naga and Melio at the same time means that this overtime stall is going to be it. Doctor Strange, I think we've seen all of the Vanguards outside of 4 in play in this round alone, Tetcher, with that portal play right at the end, because you've got Lugia moving over towards the Venom. You had both the melee tanks too. But good grief, if you wanted an example of a hero shooter switching characters as consistently as you can to try and counter the opponent, look no further than that round, because good lord, Tetcher, we saw a lot of characters hit the server then.
In that last push alone, we saw Lugia swapping onto the Venom from the Thing because they've realized that they just needed extra speed to get to the point. This is a classic strategy. Just pick the fastest rollout to make sure you have bodies, and of course symbiotic resilience makes you incredibly hard to take down. But Knudsen He went an opposite route. He put trust in his vanguards to make sure that they hit the point first and went for Adam. Because if that fight had lasted long enough, there was a chance they could have charged a karmic revival to elongate it even longer. They did not need it. They were able to hold through that portal just thanks to reinforcements. But Rad, pushing almost all the way to the end, is going to be an incredibly difficult feat to match.
Look at this change up though. You've got Melio moving over towards the Ultra on the Psylocke. Not protected over on the side of Rad. They banned it out to make sure that they couldn't see it on Zero Tenacity's side. Which I think makes sense. You've got the torch that was saved as well, so it's a tricky one to say the least. Lugia, I wonder if he's still committing to the cause, but you've got the thing, Emma Frost as your lineup. There's not really many barriers to rely on, and Knuten considered switching over towards the Bucky a little bit earlier, but moved back over to the Adam Warlock. They'll be using it straight away on this attacking side.
They do, of course, have that embattled leap. Yes, the street charge. They can try and set themselves up for a bit more of an aggressive charge play. We'll see how well this does work out for them. They are running a double strategist here with Luna Snow and the Invisible Woman. So the thing is going to get Fantastic Force, Guardian Barrier, and potentially a Snowflake throughout these fights for that Idol Aura. This is going to be a great opportunity for Zero Tenacity to try and just maximize the use of the thing. And nice using the boost to get up to the high ground, but Naga is yet to be contested. There we go, Bionic Hook to try and focus them down. Has used Sonic Stealth, will get chased down and picked off by Knuten.
Is finding these picks is going to be important, but rather doing a really nice job of just stalling this objective. Literally just on the point next to it. And trust me, winning that fight against Knuten means that even though the numbers are the way of Zero Tenacity, that objective, the Colossal Groot, is not going anywhere, actually. Now it's starting to move back as Rad have to surrender some space. Amelio's trying really hard to just survive. Him and Naga are going to have to back out, and you can sort of see one player over on the side of Rad, a little bit deeper than anticipated. I can't work out who it is. It's Rajaro, of course, on the Captain America. He goes down, so it's a 5 versus 6.
Portal coming in, Naga into the backline, does yet to have that dance of the butterfly. Yanti Street Charge coming on in, Bionic Hook once again, and it feels like Knuten is locked in on this with level 1 Crook taken down. Here comes that dance of the butterfly, but everyone is grouped up. There's a fate of both worlds, and they're going to try and push on in towards this point number 1. This is Zero Tenacity trying to turn this game around, and they are looking brilliant right now. Meteor off the ceiling, an indoor room means you can make plays like that, crack and impact. Knuten wants them, wants Melio.
Sorry, I was distracted at the fact that I think Knuten is wearing a tiara. Can we get his perspective again and just look into the right-hand corner? That's taking all of my attention. Look at that. You saw it for a glimpse. Oh, but it's still not really going anywhere for Zero Tenacity. Not quite the princess that's going to storm the castle, potentially. Rad's defense is looking a little bit too much to deal with. And now you've got level 1 Crook over on the Mantis. Is just going to sit back, and a lot of pressure goes on to Naga to be that sole duelist to work with. Rajaro with the Eye of Agamotto just sitting for a good opportunity, and there's not many barriers that can stop him.
Smash Nez looking for the opening. Here comes that Eye of Agamotto. Like you said, no one has done Yanti Street Charge for the follow-up. But it's not going to stop Rajaro from getting a huge blow-up. Lugia trying to save their team with some crowd control, but that is going to be Zero Tenacity wiped off the board once again. And Rad have them locked in here on this point number 1. Look at Zero Tenacity's ultimates, though. They have Silent Seduction and Supernova. Very nearly have Clobbering Time, and they're about halfway towards everything else. If they want to make a play, they could do so now. They've already taken down Naga, and they could just try and hyper-commit to this.
That's the one player with an ultimate on the side of Rad as well, so Naga Dance of the Butterflies is going to be a little bit belated, but it could be perfectly timed. So Zero Tenacity now, Psionic Seduction might be the way that they want to start this engagement. You have to try to get as many barriers out the way as possible. No, it's the Dance of the Butterflies in the corridor that's going to connect onto multiple players. Invisible Boundary a little bit too late to keep Knuten alive and going, and when you have the Supernova just holding on down, damage boosted and the dive down to ground, Zero Zero Tenacity relying a lot on the support ultimate. The strategists are really keeping things going as much as they possibly can. And Ducky now, is there any follow-up off this Ionic Seduction? The Eye of Agamotto is actually going to come in from the other side. I think Rajaro going for the portal to just cut them off completely. And Zero Tenacity scrambling to try and get this map choice of theirs going. They have enough bodies to just keep themselves on the point, but Rad now taking control of it yet again. Overtime beckoning down, and it's really going from bad to worse. Rad double up with the points in this best of 5. They go 2-0 up.
Wonderful play by Rad there, taking full control, a hyper-aggressive push in earlier, being able to just smash through those early setups, and then on the defense, not going for the Wolverines that we've seen them bring out before. They just stick very safe. They just go for maximum sustain, a little bit of backline. Right, we talked about how strong Psylocke is on this map, and they used it to great effect. Psylocke plus damage boost, triple strategist, keeping the front line topped up. Melio's pinging people from the sky. It is just a very safe setup for Rad that worked beautifully.
You see how much healing Oasis was able to do. I think they were almost exclusively on the Mantis, and they're putting out 30k's worth of healing in a game like that. Smash there's topping the damage as you sort of expect, and it's just not really enough to actually keep people going. It's so much that's been healed up by Rad, and it means that they have the support ultimates aplenty. The strategists are just never really stretching too thin when it comes to some of those bigger bits of cooldown. And here, like, Rad's really setting the pace here. Like, they've looked really good throughout this tournament, and winning up against Virtus Pro is a hard thing to do. It wasn't necessarily the best look from them from that upper bracket final in groups, but honestly, they've bounced back really well.
They really have, getting a full recovery here. They ran that Namor in game number 1 and then adjusting it when they saw their opponents were leaning a bit more heavy on flyers. That was just beautiful, understanding how this map works when you have a roof in certain maps, like the doorway into Symbiotic Surface or here on Araco. You can capitalize. You don't always have to
bring the name. This is a team to keep an eye on for, and they're coming to win it all. But unfortunately, right now, they're facing up against another strong team that's trying to make a statement in the other group, and failing and down 0-2. Loki actually being the first ban out from Rad is a pretty interesting one. And feeling the pressure, Zero Tenacity aren't going to try and take out both Vanguards or try to take out anything more. They're instead going to, I mean, at this point, probably save the Magneto.
No, looking at that Human Torch, we talked about the priority on the flyers. This does mean, though, that in theory, Rad could go for a heavy Vanguard ban set. There we go. They lean away from the Torch. They realize that just one of them might be priority, and they do prioritize Magneto over the Emma Frost, where they could have set themselves up for a mirror. With the risk of flyers in the game, and also the potential for Psylocke sneaking around in the backline, we're going to take away that Lunar Snow. Getting that Idle Aura onto anyone like a Human Torch in the air or a Psylocke on the backline means they can stay sustained while you continue to heal your frontline Vanguards.
Mirror ban coming out as we get into, I guess, this sort of stage 2 of it. Torch versus Cloak and Dagger. Rad sort of going back to that old playbook that they had over in the group stages, of maybe going for a triple strategist ban. And against Zero Tenacity, when you know that they like to run triple strategist themselves, might not be a bad shout. It in fact even forces out the Protect over Invisible Woman, which means that the Mantis is going to be hit. So surely there's no chance for Zero Tenacity to run Knuten playing either Ultron or Adam Warlock here when you don't have that Inspire.
It would be a little bit more difficult for them to do so, like you say, without that damage boost. However, with Cloak and Dagger removed as well, they don't have that, but there is one alternative. The Storm. There is the damage boost from the Goddess Aura, where they could try if they wanted to. We saw Lone 9 lean quite heavily on the Storm earlier, and with the fact that Zero Tenacity did not get the Human Torch ban down against them, if they were watching the games earlier, there is potentially some inspiration that could be taken there. But we're starting off with some standard pickups here. We're getting Knuten back on that Punisher, and then some less standard pickups on the Hovers. Smash this, though, realizing that they once again have that Punisher. Backline defense is important, and looks once again at the Namor.
Rad, however, no team having access to Loki, they're able to protect Luna. They've got a good amount of healing output. You've taken out so many strategists on the other side as well, so A little bit scary, I think, for Z10. They've had to show a lot of different looks, and granted, this isn't elimination. They're not playing for their lives so far in this tournament. It is about setting themselves up nicely in this playoffs, get into that upper bracket final with a chance to play either Berber Patspin or Virtus Pro, which is going to be the series after this. So if you haven't earned that magic skin, you can just leave us playing. We've got plenty of good action to go on, and this series could either be a belter with a potential reverse sweep for Z10, or a very quick one as we move on. But Rad, 2-0 up. Zero Tenacity taking us to Central Park. They had a really good showing yesterday, but it was a lot of focus that went over onto the torch, which is not really going to be available for them this time.
There is a torch available, but only one-sided, like you say, but it's not going to start here, as we will see Smash. There's not going onto their torch. They start off on that Ultron, so they are going triple strategist with the Rocket Raccoon Invisible Woman, just going hyper protection on that Punisher, and being able to use that Guardian Barrier to keep them alive, and having that Battle Rebirth Beacon, the BRB from Rocket, to revive someone in the fight, means you can go for an aggressive defense. Rad, though, already on flanks. They've got Star-Lord, they've got Ultron. They are constantly going to be above you, causing issues, and if you look up, Rajaro's going to be running you down from the ground. They are on that Captain America, and already it's the double, it's the triple, and Rad are pushing through this. That Battle Rebirth brings back one, but it's not going to matter because the whole team's getting taken out.
Felt that Rad actually made the adjustment expecting that they'd run into an Ultron and a Torch. That's why Naga's over on a Star-Lord first, but was just going to be Ultron in the air. That's all that they had to deal with. Lugia actually swapping over towards the Thing, so you've got the Groot and the Thing as that main Vanguard line. And the sky is held down from Melio. Not going to have too much of a contest in the air. It's going to be Smash Nez, and this triple strategist that's attempted for Zero Tenacity, because they lost out on the Luna, the Cloak, and the Mantis, it just doesn't have enough about it. It's just missing a little bit of that beef to keep people alive and going in these engagements, and that's why the right-hand screen is just full of the red names of Rad as they're snowballing this second point.
Melio using dynamic flights to dash behind the opponents for that range of Ultrons so he could shoot through them into his team, giving them healing and damaging everyone else. So far, this is a huge snowball. Rad are already heading towards point number 2, and Zero Tenacity have barely even built up their first set of ult charges. We already have Knut on 86%. Ducky is able to be charged up. Lugia is going to try and launch Smash Nez to try and at least catch someone from Rad.
I mean, we started about 6 p.m. BST. Hold that thought, actually, because that is a great Strangling Prison, and the barrage is going to be enough to try to cut some more space for Naga. Neglected Legend maybe going to be the extra cherry on top. It has forced out quite a lot, and the Final Judgment going to try to drone him out in the sky. We got the arm amplifier as well, but that extra damage boost is what we were looking for Zero Tenacity. And everything being used from Zero Tenacity to just keep themselves in this one, frankly. But yeah, we started about 6 p.m. British time, and it's been less than an hour. I think this best of 5 could be over in.
Here comes the invisible boundary for an attempt to delay. Rajaro, though, just going to drop the freedom charge, run around the point. Does get hit by that Wolverine, forced to dash away at least a little bit, but is getting that constant bonus health tick and giving it to any allies who they run through. That will expire, and it looks like finally Rad are going to start to get cleaned up. Fate has swapped over to the Adam Warlocks. They know that it's probably time for a regroup, and now they have more time with still 3.5 minutes to go to build up ultimates like that Karmic Revival, and with their still being now that Wolverine on the board, there is a very high chance of getting taken out, and Adam Warlock, Cosmic Cluster into the incredibly large hitbox of the Thing is just delicious.
Let's rock this.
Got the Rage of Ultron, that's about it. That's going to come out instantly, actually, from Melio. See if it could break some of the terrain and get people low, and it has set up Crook to actually get a pick over onto the strategist on the other side. Combination is incredibly strong, and usually you sort of expect to see a lot of these like ultimate combinations here. Really, it was just the Rage of Ultron allowing a bit of a go push for Rad, and Zero Tenacity not having enough, not having anything to deal with this. It hit the second point with probably a lot of time on the board, I think, Tetra. Yeah, 4 minutes.
4 minutes to go. The chase down. Melio is playing one of the most aggressive Ultrons I've ever seen, and their map awareness is constant. They are more than happy to use dynamic flight to dash past and behind opponents, but then you'll always see them turn around. They just protected their backline because they knew it was time to turn around. What a slumber in there onto Canuton, but the whole team is grouped up, so they're able to stay up in the early parts of this fight, meaning Rajaro is going to be the one who is dropped incredibly low. Final judgment from Canuton takes out Naga in the air, and it's finally Zero Tenacity once again burning multiple ultimates to try and take this fight. But Naga returning thanks to the cocoon with that Galactic Legend, looking onto the backliners, chasing deep into the doorway, and the healing output is just not enough. Invisible Woman will stealth away back to their team to try and get out, but Winnie falls, and while all this is happening, Rad took control and have once again continued their march towards Dracula's dining room.
That is crazy that they use Yarn Amplifier, they use Final Judgment, they use Strangled Prison and Last Stand, and it's not enough. Rad, they've managed to sort of, I think, break the formula here. There's just not enough sustain for Zero Tenacity with the strategists that they have on the field. Lugia and Ducky just having to brawl this out, and Wolverine, they want to try and fight in these corridors and fight a bit close quarters. But even if they do get the picks, the Counter Revival is going to bring back 3 different players, so Rad are going to keep this one moving.
Clobbering time, they're able to avoid it, but they're chased down by the rage of Ultron. Pushing on through. Rocket! Run, Rocket! He can't get away as they force their way forward, taking out the Vanguards, taking out the Wolverines. It's Invisible Woman trying to run from spawn to touch this car, but with 3 bodies on it, the Squirrel marches on home. That is Rad with the triple cap, and Zero Tenacity teeter on the edge.
The funniest thing is that even though that was pretty dominant from Rad, that is probably definitely not the fastest time that we've seen set on Central Park. I think Zero Tenacity might have even beat it yesterday when they went up against L9, I think it was. But here it's a tough old time. Even Pep, sorry, it was that they were up against. So yeah, Zero Tenacity really just down in the dumps, it feels like. Nothing seemed to connect on what they wanted to do and approach on this map. And again, to reiterate the bans, you're missing out on Loki, Luna, Cloak and Dagger, and Mantis. Your backline is just trying to keep afloat. Invisible Woman was forced to be protected in the end because that's needing something to rely on. An ultimate to just out-sustain some of the damage is important, but honestly, it's just not enough. Look at the healing that's been done actually from that backline. We saw them play a little bit over on the Ultron to begin with, but it was a quick changeover and Rads were very prepared for it no matter what.
Rad setting themselves up for the defense, have not adjusted the majority of their composition, sticking with Melio in the sky, keeping this Adam Warlock as it did them quite well later on in the matchup. And Zero Tenacity, we did see them hovering the thing. They are still going to try and commit to this, meaning we will likely still see this Wolverine. No, they swapped to the Groot to try and create an opening that way, meaning Canuton is going to look to be trying to pull people out of the sky.
Yeah, Smashness is on Jeff. He still has Torch available to him, right? It's the other side that the ban came through. It was Z10 banning it away from Rad. So he has that option available to him, but I guess he's just worried about being taken out of the sky. But it's going to be a ground battle, and it's a pretty stressful look in this match. There's trying to keep everybody going, a little bit more of a brawlier composition for Zero Tenacity this time. Trying to play around the Emma Frost and also the group for Ducky. But there's so many high corridors, open skies that Melio wants to rain hell down from. And he's not afraid to follow them into these deep, dingy corners of the map and still able to find the picks.
Zero Tenacity are playing grouped up. They're just using the maximum AoE healing they can find. Invisible Woman, Pierce healing. Rocket, Pierce healing. Jeff, Pierce healing. They're trying to just stay together. But while that happens, you don't pierce backwards. Melio is always behind you. Rage of Ultron, keeping the team topped up, and the Invisible Boundary will likely allow Zero Tenacity to at least sustain through the early part of this fight. But once it's down, Galactic Legend into the backline. They're moving beautifully to try and avoid this Kraken impact. To look for a turnaround. Will force at least a little bit of consideration. It's Jeff, comes on out, and I don't think Smash has definitely got 2. He's making this way to the end. It's the spin, but Diamond Form Emma's able to get back away, but they're able to take down level 1 Crook, who will get revived by Fate.
So this is a happy fight for Rad to be fighting on. 33% made onto the board, but not really much else for Zero Tenacity. If they take this fight, it's been stalled out a good amount. And Melio starting off this engagement with a Rage of Ultron is very close to having a second one that could potentially cap out this fight. Z10 have to give up this space. Whilst the other Psionic Seduction, Lugia's main focus is going to be to get out, but he can't get there. The reset is required, and the spawn doors are being held by Rad, and potentially the series could be held by the spawn doors too.
They need to wait for Lugia, they need to get out of spawn again, but like you say, Rad are already pushing so far up. They have the option to swap to Strange if someone goes down, Rage of Ultron into the doorway, here comes the Psionic Seduction, but Melio is crowd control immune while in this form, so just needs to get out of there for when it expires, but doesn't even need to. Quick chase down onto Lugia, and that Captain America in the backline, making it so the healers just can't seem to get onto Lugia in that front line. This is just zoning potential. How long until Zero Tenacity just try to swap to Strange and try and portal in, because they are running low on time.
Galactic Legend might be a little bit of a sight for sore eyes. Just to make sure that Zero Tenacity are forced into this position. Kraken's impact is going to be used to just create, honestly, a bit of space. Naga, you can see, is just still trying to be a little bit more annoying. And no people are able to get on the point as of yet. Zero Tenacity dedicating some pretty big ultimates now. The third one as well with the arm amplifier to try and keep this going. But there's no pigs that are forming. In fact, it's them that's going down. They lose Winnie that has the invisible boundary. And now 40 seconds left for Zero Tenacity to get something going. Need to worry about the Jeff ultimate. We'll have to see if he's managed to connect some people, but he's able to catch one. And even if it did lead towards an elimination, the Karma Revival's going to bring people back. The Strangler Prison thrown up into the high tower to try and catch people as they're being resurrected. But yet again, no follow through from Z10. Rad has set this up perfectly with 15 seconds left and overtime force is required. I don't know if it's going to be available.
Rad are locked down. Oasis swaps over to the Strange. Someone needs to make sure they can keep a body on this. Portal comes out. They will touch in time. It's last ditch effort, last chance saloon for Zero Tenacity. Kraken impact comes on down, but Winnie Newton and Oasis are wiped. Melio has so much map awareness to catch people as they come on through. No one is close. Oasis already back in spawn, trying to make it back through their own portal, but it's just not happening. And Rad move on in this upper bracket, and that was strong. Rad are back.
It's a big statement. Yeah, maybe it's not the same sort of statement as 2-0 in Virtus Pro was, but the fact that they're able to go and have a good showing against the Z10 that haven't really put a foot wrong at all, it seems like so far in Ignite, says a lot. Again, this isn't just like a throwaway result. You have to be solid as a team to be able to win on all the different game modes to win out a 3-0, especially when 0-10 have had the choice of map for the last 2 rounds in a row. But it was just a perfect execution, I suppose, of what that draft phase was. It's Zero Tenacity, they have a lot of tricks to rely on, but if you're able to just starve out 4 different strategists, there's only so many directions that you can go with. The Torch was available for SmashNez, but he wasn't able to ever pick it realistically with the compositions that they had available.
And you talk about the just attempted strangle of the strategies, whereas Rad, they just went for as many as they possibly could. They had the triple strategist set up, of course, with the Adam Warlock in that defensive round, so they could bring back that Mantis, bring back Naga when they got taken down on that Starlord. So they had the triple res. Then, of course, they had the Ultron as even more sustained and some extra burst damage. And Raja are essentially having a strategist ultimate of their own with that freedom charge giving bonus health. They always had something to defend against Zero Tenacity when they went in, and against the big moves like the Straggling Prison, they always had enough extra protection thanks to Rajaro to tank on through it. Zero Tenacity just weren't able to bring it, which is why they swapped to Jeff, which I did enjoy. If you can't burst through your opponent's defenses, then you might as well just try and take him off the map. It's a solid idea. They just weren't able to get the execution on it because Melio was locked onto that shark like Jaws.
It's not only the result or even how some of the maps went, I think it's just the style of play that we saw from Rad. Like that first round of, like, different Vanguards did you play on that first point of Araco? Because we saw you on Hulk, Thing, Venom, I think, at a point. You seemed to do the whole, like, gun game, I suppose, of playing all of them in that one round alone.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of swapped around a lot. You had to, right? Because the matchup lead into it. I was a bit surprised by the EMEA ban. I think the EMEA ban was really good from them because it kind of lead into us like losing our strategy and our idea around it. So it was really hard to defeat that EMEA, right? Because Magneto on point loses the resource trait, so he takes more damage than he does, and that's really bad for us in general. Because then you need to make value out of him, and you can't really. So the idea was the wolf grab with the hook, but that didn't really work when they swapped to Thing. So that was a big problem.
So I want to ask something about that I was just talking to Ryan about, and that is how you guys do seem to draft. In terms of prioritizing, at least in the early game, in the first round, a bit more of a single duelist style where you prioritize one of the big characters. The Human Torch, for example, the Punisher hovered in there, the Psylocke in that Araco map. But then in the next match, in the third match, you adjusted and went very heavily on the defenses, giving yourself that triple res comp available, leading on Starlord with Melio just kind of chasing people down on Ultron. Where do you feel like the balance is between trying to prioritize one of these high-value duelists compared to when it's time to just try and bunker in and defend?
For me, it depends a lot on the map, right? If the right map opens up and there's a lot of open space, then Wolverine, an example, becomes way weaker because he has less opportunities to hide for a grab, right? When he has that close corner and he can be pocketed from an angle, which on an open map that cannot be possible because the supports are always going to be exposed when the Wolverine plays close range. So you kind of isolate that problem by not having to ban the Wolf then, right? Because you can play a dive comp because the map is so open. So we always ban around what we feel like is good on a certain map, and we always are super individual with the bans. I spent 3 hours yesterday watching America, the bans that they have there. There was a lot of upsets in the American tournament, so that was very enlightening to what is very good to ban, what is usually good, what people play. A lot of things also lead into what you think the opponent is strong at. Like, we know our opponent is strong on Loki. That's why we banned Loki first, because we had that thought that as a last savior, they might save Loki first, right? Since they did that in the past against Patapin. So we wanted to throw them off with that and maybe catch them off guard because they're like so sure on the idea they're gonna get Loki safe now because we always ban tank first, but then suddenly we ban Loki first. And it like throws them off a lot. And they had the 2 strong tanks open, Magneto and EMEA, but they couldn't really play them because we just like had really good bans around it.
I wanted to speak about that last map's bans as well because he went for what? Loki, Luna, Cloak and Dagger, Mantis. And Z10 are a hard team to draft against because they're so flexible. Was that the formula almost? Because it felt that they were trying to play triple strategies, but they just didn't have enough sustain, right? Like they were lacking so many of those big ultimates to keep people alive. And whilst they protected the Invisible Woman, you were still just mowing through them, right? They had to go Rocket, Raccoon, and Jeff in some instances. That's how much you starved them away from playing strategists. Was that always the goal against C10? Because like I said, they're a very flexible team.
Not always. If the map is not that open, then you cannot play the Ultron comp, and then the entire strategy falls apart, right? It's the fact that they have supports that have to play in the open against the dive composition, because otherwise the invis don't get value, and then they can never make any progress because they can never walk up, because our captain will just instantly contest everyone. So it's like the fact that the strategy is good on that specific map, why you play it, right? So that is one thing. I also have to say, yesterday, right, I came here with the most terrible microphone, because I had webcam mic. I think the microphone now is a lot better, right? Hopefully.
It is, yeah. You're not on your webcam mic.
hear.
I saw Melio having a good laugh at you in chat afterwards, so I wasn't too sure.
All right, let's look ahead to the future. You are now in these upper bracket finals, meaning you are essentially 1 game away from the grand finals if you can beat either Virtus.pro or Burbur Patapim. I feel like this is going to be a really obvious question to ask. Which one would you prefer?
In terms of who we think is weaker, or in terms
like to
of
play against?
Okay, then it's probably Patapim, because I want my revenge against them from Fight Night, and I have gotten. Obviously, we're down and we're fine to play either of the teams, right? For me, it's more a thing about that. It doesn't matter how many times we lost against VP. There's a saying that I always follow: yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift, right? That's why it's called the present. You know, that's the saying. Amazing. I always follow along. And for me, right, yesterday I think we really, really underperformed in the very first map. And I think we made up for it today. And I think we really showed that we earned our spot as a good team. Because yesterday the energy level during the first map was also low. I felt like we were not giving 100%. I asked some of the team if they did give 100%. Some of them said yes. But for the amount of effort we spent, we cannot give 100%. We need to give 200, right? 100% is not enough for the amount of effort we spend on each other. If we want to respect each other, everyone needs to give all of what they have. It's not enough if we don't give 200% for the amount of work we put in.
I want somebody to take that clip and put motivational music behind it, and you can play that like if we see you guys going the distance, because that was a hell of a showing today, trust me. Thank you very much for joining us, and you get to sit back and see who your opponent in the upper bracket final is going to be a little bit later. So thank you again for joining us, man. It was an absolute pleasure.